Hello there. You have stumbled upon the Terribly Vexed Podcast. The fellas have been expecting you. Please prepare to have your mind blown squarely out of your ass. Be sure to set your motherfucker to receive. Enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome back to the Terribly Vexed Podcast. This is Josh over here.
This is Justin.
Hey, glad you decided to join us again.
Once again, we're back.
We're going to be talking about Dr. Joseph Bell. You know, we're going to get right into this one. We're just going to make it a quick little episode.
No preamble.
Not going to talk about anything.
No current event garbage.
Going on outside in the world today. We're just going to get right into it.
Pointless.
Take you back in time a few years, back to the 1800s, when Dr. Joseph Bell was operating and was in practice as surgeon, professor,
and master of, deduction.
Master of deduction. That's one way of putting it, I guess, right?
There we go. Do you want to, explain to the folks at home, perhaps, who Dr. Bell is?
Or was.
Was.
Past
is what I mean.
tense.
Like, perhaps, what he's best known for. He's...
Got a special guest with us this afternoon in the studio.
Yes, we do. He is loving that couch. Josh's dog.
A border collie that some of you may know. If you follow me on Instagram, post a lot of pictures of him there. His name is Jack, and he's a wild man.
Yes, he is. He was asleep for about 2 hours until I hit record, and then
now he's waking up.
Yep.
Sorry.
Well, good for him. So who? Go ahead.
That's the question. Who was Dr. Joseph Bell?
That is the question I asked myself when you said, let's do an episode on Dr. Joseph Bell. I was like, who the hell?
Who the hell?
Who the hell is he?
Is Dr. Bell.
Yeah.
Well, if I were to say to you, if I were to ask you, Justin, who is Sherlock Holmes? What would you say?
Detective.
He's a detective, right?
Yep. He has a...
But if I were to just ask you, you would know who Sherlock Holmes is. A character created
100%.
by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yes.
Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yes.
A detective that I would say most people in the world know, but that probably thought he was not a real man. Probably thought he was
a fictional character.
A fictional character. The invention of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a character created for his stories, for his books.
Yep, as I did.
There you go. Until I threw out this idea that we should do an episode on Dr. Joseph Bell, which is who Sherlock Holmes was based off of.
Yep, he was the inspiration.
Yep.
For Dr. Sherlock Holmes. Wait,
no.
Dr. Sherlock Holmes? Where'd that come from? I was looking at the word doctor in my notes is when I said that.
Yeah. So yeah, he is from whence it all came.
Yep.
He was actually a professor of before it was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He was just Conan Doyle in college when he went to be a doctor.
Little old Conan.
Yep. And he was one of his professors.
Yep. And he ended up being his assistant.
Yeah, he was like his clerk or something like that.
His outpatient clerk.
Which essentially, I guess, just had to do with him taking notes, getting people's names, getting the pedigree information, weights.
all the stuff they do. You know, when you go to the doctor's office,
basically,
how you doing? Step on this.
And I think he was only his clerk for maybe like a year or two. It wasn't that long, really.
No.
And from everything that I've read, he didn't really develop any sort of personal relationship with him outside of being his clerk in a working atmosphere.
Yeah.
Best I can tell.
Yep.
Now, somebody listening to this podcast may know more, but from every source that I saw, both on the web and via several books that I looked through, that seems to kind of be what they said. That he just was basically his... And, there was a lot of students in the class, but for whatever reason, he picked young Conan Doyle to be his clerk.
Yeah.
I think he said I think I read that he showed promise
Mm-hmm.
and that he was, he was astute. He was, seemed to be doing better than some of the other students for whatever reason. Picked him out of a hat. You've got planets aligning here to make things happen because ultimately he would create the character of Sherlock Holmes later.
Yeah.
Base him off his professor. Had he picked another student, Justin,
I'm listening.
there would be no Sherlock Holmes.
There would be no Sherlock.
More than likely. Because
Done.
he got to witness firsthand what we're going to get into here in a second, which is right now. Dr. Joseph Bell's uncanny ability to, when they would bring in a patient, his uncanny ability to diagnose what was wrong with them, as well as sort of pick things apart about their where they're from, personality, job.
Yeah, and all this just by giving them a good once over.
Just
no
by
blood tests, anything like that. No, nothing. Just
nothing.
Looking at them.
This stuff didn't really exist at that point. You're talking like blood tests and all this kind of stuff. This is to put it in the time period of the late 1800s.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. He's very much a pioneer of C.S.I. This is pretty much where C.S.I. was born with
Correct.
this man.
Yeah, they say that he was really one of the first forensic, forensic doctors, forensic.
Just a pioneer of forensic science.
Yeah, because he was utilized
utilized
in criminal work, which wasn't really happening anywhere in the world at that time.
Right.
What was the term? Damn it, it's driving me crazy.
That's what it is. Forensic science.
I know, but there's
pathology.
Forensic pathologist.
There it is.
Yes. Thank you. For Christ's sakes.
He gave birth.
Drive me crazy.
He gave birth to it.
Essentially, he did.
Uh-huh.
He's one of the forefathers of it. This is when they started utilizing something called science, right, to detect crimes and criminals and sort of piece together, make a case, actually produce evidence that could convict somebody of a crime and use that in court. And he was one of the first to do it.
100%.
Dr. Joseph Bell.
Yeah.
You
just named him at the end of a slight rant. You name a guy. Hey. All right. What else you got? It didn't go over that well. I thought I would go over
a
a
lot.
little
What else do you want?
No,
we're done.
What
right?
I mean is,
are
we going to start like beginning of life? We're going to start.
Oh, we certainly can.
Some famous.
You certainly can.
Cases, perhaps.
Oh, we'll cover all that stuff in the next hour or so, right?
Fair enough. You want me to hit the basics real quick? Just he was born. I'll tell you. I mean, I could tell you when he was born.
I think most people
are
going to want to know what that is anyway. When this happened, to give us a frame of reference here.
Okay, well,
we're saying the beginning of forensic science. So that's
yes.
A lot of people don't know when that started.
Well, I'll say young Joseph Bell was born on December 2nd, 1837 in Edinburgh. I know it's Edinburgh, but it's spelled Berg, and it annoys me. That's another topic we can talk about later. Edinburgh, Scotland. He got married.
Probably.
At some point to a gal named Edith. Edith Catherine Erskine Murray. You with me so far?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a son named Benjamin, which I didn't know this also.
His son Benjamin never did anything, by the way.
No. God, no. But
it's this old man that was the...
But what was it?
I think it's the cracking of my chair, sorry.
Oh, I thought it was the dog doing so. Okay. Joseph Bell, did you know this? He was the great-grandson of Benjamin Bell. And he was the first scientific surgeon in Scotland ever.
Wow.
Great-grandson. Imagine what could that have possibly been? Joseph Bell was born in 1837. So he's the great-grandson of a guy, the first scientific surgeon. What was that? First one to use a scalpel instead of a saw. I don't understand.
You're
what
saying
that
it was
could possibly
probably
be.
archaic.
Yes, extremely.
But
All
maybe there
medicine
was
is, though. I think
some groundbreaking stuff happening in the whole family here. It seems like he was part of a sort of a lineage.
Yeah.
A semi-lineage of people that were doing some groundbreaking stuff in the medical field, right?
Yep, for sure. Then, just real quick, I'm just going to give you just another thing. He went to the University of Edinburgh Medical School, and he got his medical degree in 1859, which, born in 1837, 1859, you do the math. Young man getting a medical degree. Yeah, I mean...
There wasn't as much to learn?
Maybe you can cram it all in real quick.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of wonder how much we've technologically progressed and how much we've learned in the past 150 years. So you remove a lot of that.
I wonder if that's why there's you get your MD and then you get but it's in proctology, for example.
Right.
Right? That's why there's branches now.
Yeah, you have a
focus.
focus.
You got your general practice doctor. But back in the day, that was it, I think, right?
There was just doctor.
Yeah. You're just a medical doctor.
Yeah, I think that's what Conan Doyle was. This was just a general practitioner.
Yeah.
That's all he was as well. I say all. That's all he was, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
There weren't, not everybody was in the medical field. So.
Yep. It was a big deal, I would imagine.
Yeah, you still have to learn stuff.
Just the fact you can get in there also. He was the...
Legacy. He was brought in because, his grandfather was...
That's it. That's all it was. He was dumb as dirt. I'm kidding, of course. Another little notch on his belt. He was the personal surgeon to Queen Victoria whenever she visited Scotland. She wanted him to,
him and
be the man.
Henry Littlejohn, who was another doctor who I think was a colleague of his.
They double teamed her medically.
Yes.
Not. Yeah, you know what I mean.
They were both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Associated or affiliated. Yeah.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting. I think that's kind of interesting, as we'll see later.
See,
a number of reasons.
Yeah, you definitely know more about the Little John stuff than me.
I don't really.
That's for sure.
I just know that he was.
Oh, well, okay then. And then, that's really all I have, to be honest with you. I can tell you when he died. He died on October 4th, 1911. So 1837 to 1911, and he did a lot.
Yeah, he did quite a bit.
He did a bunch in that time. It's really all I got for the basics, anyways. So.
Oh, good.
Just a quick rundown of the man's life.
Which gets us going, gets us in there.
100%.
So we're talking about him today because he was the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes.
Yep.
And of course, Sherlock Holmes was known for his powers of deduction, noticing the little details. I know that you have some specifics on that.
100%.
If perhaps you would like to, and of course, I guess most or some of our listeners have read some Sherlock Holmes books, right?
Uh-huh.
Have you?
Nope. You know what? I'm thinking of Perrault, Agatha Christie. Nope. I'm on the.
I guess that's a Sherlock Holmes sort of knockoff, right?
Well, some would say it's better, but
who would say that?
A lot of people. Agatha Christie's considered a brilliant lady for her portrayal of detectivism.
I see.
Yeah. I'd say it's Perrault and Sherlock Holmes. Those are the two top dogs.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
The reason why he sort of, created this character of Sherlock Holmes later, as I read in my research for this episode, was that he himself, Arthur Conan Doyle, noticed that in a lot of the mystery tales or the detective stories that he was reading, that the detective or whomever it was that was sort of the protagonist would solve the case just almost through a series of just missteps and happenstance, if that makes any sense.
Like Clouseau.
Not really coming to any sort of actual, following a process.
Yeah.
There was no procedure. There was no... He didn't detect clues. He didn't piece things together. He didn't connect the dots.
Right. The clues are always obvious. Oh, we got a handprint here. rather than what you're about to see
Yeah.
Joseph Bell do.
If even that, it would almost just be like the case would solve itself in a series, like I said, of missteps. And he sort of just like he was like, what we don't have right now is a character, a detective that solves cases through actual hard work, through deduction, through observation, using his intelligence, using his vast knowledge of things. That's where the character of Sherlock Holmes came from, because he observed his professor in college, Dr. Bell, doing that very thing, which is where we're going now.
Mm-hmm.
Him bringing his patients in, and Dr. Bell being able to, most of the time, he had a better, percentage of seeing these things in people, whatever it was, figuring out where they worked, where they were from, than he did by not getting it right. Most times he got it correct.
100%.
Does that make sense? I just completely lost where I was going with that.
And
I apologize.
You're saying that he got it 99% of the time, he got it 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I got you.
And sometimes he got it wrong.
And some could say that he used a combination of induction and deduction.
Okay.
Because he knew how to take in so much, and then with that information, deduce.
Almost like judging a book by its cover.
100%.
Which is the very thing
exactly
they tell you
that.
to not do.
There you go.
Which is actually something you probably should do. And it also kind of maybe sort of goes into like your gut feeling a little bit.
A little bit.
Which we all have that. We all have this. This is something you can develop and make it, but even stronger and more.
And his was just spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like so much so that he would teach his process to his students, like you were saying, and he called it the method. Like that was what he called it. And I got his nifty little catchphrase that he came up with. This is what was on the door.
Hit us with it.
To his conference room or whatever. Observe carefully, deduce shrewdly, and confirm with hard evidence. That was the method.
I like it.
Yep.
I like it a lot.
There you go. So, like Josh was saying, he would have a group of people. Some random person would walk in just to, give the students an example of what to do. This is an example. One time, a guy came in. He said, "Hello, Mr. What's your name?" And the guy said, "Oh, Mr. Smith," or whatever his name is.
Right.
And at the end of it, Bell gave him a good once over. Checked him out, looked at him all over, and then, "Okay, Mr. Tyler, good seeing you." And obviously, I'm just making up the names for examples, but he called him out by his real name. The guy lied to him right out of the gate, gave him a false name. Bell, during the once over, just happened to notice a dry cleaning tag on the inside of his shirt collar, and so he called him by his real name. And that was just like simple. That was a simple one. Anybody could have done that.
Some sound simple, and they're so obvious that you're like, why wouldn't I have just done that myself? Why wouldn't I have thought that myself?
Exactly.
But we don't.
No.
For whatever reason. It's a muscle. You got to work it out,
Yeah. And I got some more. You want me to continue?
I think we'd all like you to continue.
Okay. Well, same kind of deal. A little old woman walked up on stage, and he kind of, looked her over, gave her the once over, and then at the end of it, he said, "I'm going to guess that you smoke from a short-stemmed clay pipe." And she was like, "What the fuck?" That's what she said back then. That's how they talked in Scotland back then. What the fuck? And inside of her purse, she pulled out. What the fuck? There we go. We got it. We both nailed it. But she pulled out a short-stemmed clay pipe out of her purse. And then he went on to explain that as he was looking her over, he noticed a small ulcer on her lip. And on the same side as the ulcer, her cheek was red. So from that, he was like, short-stemmed clay pipe. Not just a pipe. Clay, and it was short-stemmed because it, heated her cheek up permanently.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have other examples? Because I remember one that I read was talking about he could tell from a particular kind of mud or dirt on a person's shoe.
I do have two more, But if you have that one,
No. That was just I was thinking of one that I did read.
Yeah.
There's several of them out there.
Yeah. That
And
one, I remember reading something like that. He was from a certain island that only had that color mud or something like that. So he knew he came from this island at this time.
Yeah.
And because of the time of the conference or speech or whatever, he knew the boat he came in on.
Yeah. He just put it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy, just walking in the door, had no idea that he could pull all that information from him.
Just from mud. The color of the mud.
Yeah.
This man
but,
knew.
In his head, he's connecting the dots very quickly,
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
I got two more. I can skip over one of them, but this is one I really did enjoy. He was teaching his students. There was nobody involved. He just got like this vial of some type of liquid. Index finger, tasted the liquid, right? And he made like a face like, God almighty.
This is the doctor.
Yeah, this is Joseph Bell. He's like, he goes, now, he passed his first student there, said, now all of you do the same. And they, the students are like, oh boy, okay. What is this fluid? Where is it from? So they all tasted it. It was god awful. It got back to Bell, and Bell's just like, nobody seemed to notice that I put my middle finger in my mouth instead of my index finger that I dipped in that god awful garbage you all tasted. So it was just a classic, teaching.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Classic prank, but it was also a good teaching moment.
Very good.
If they had just spotted the little.
That's a
little
good
difference.
example of watching and being mindful of the details.
Yeah.
They didn't happen. None of them saw, of all the students.
Yep.
And that's really that's a good example, because that would really take it to the next level. That would make you like, okay, you got to watch everything. You've got to see everything. You've got to raise your ability to observe up. It's, because normally we don't do that.
No, not at all. The Usual Suspects taught us that.
Yeah.
I meant to say Shawshank. Oh, well. How many times do you notice a man's shoes?
Right, exactly.
Andy Dufresne.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. What were you going to say?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you had something ready to go.
Just trying to think of another movie that we could use, but,
Well, what about Robert
pop
Downey
culture
Jr.?
references get injected in here every once in a while.
Robert Downey Jr. plays Sherlock Holmes.
He does.
That's all I got for that. I've never seen one of those movies.
Lots of people have played Sherlock Holmes.
That's true. Yeah.
But you can watch a couple of. I think there's a couple, maybe like two. I'm thinking like two, just right off the top of my head, throwing this in there. Maybe like 2 documentaries on YouTube you can watch, old documentaries on Dr. Bell that will talk more about his method, about the way he did this stuff. I do have some examples. I'm not going to go through them and read them verbatim.
Okay.
I'm picking a couple of the notes out, because here's the problem. Okay? Just tell the listeners here, and you, as you're sitting directly across from me.
Yeah, I'm looking at you.
The problem is,
Looking at you.
I always get too many notes for these things. Honestly, I do. And it's a little much. It's a little hard to go through notes. There's a process, and I haven't quite figured it out yet, that will allow me to speak fluidly, to have a conversation with my co-host, get the information across, but then at the same time try to reference notes. It's a complicated process that I don't think most appreciate. But I've learned to appreciate.
It's very difficult when you hear a good podcast that throws out a lot of information in like a timeline kind of form,
like we try to do.
But it's a learned process.
It's a skill.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, not gonna, and I've tried this before, maybe we'll use Sid later and throw some quotes in. I don't know.
Okay.
There's a lot of interesting information about him that you can read. We will include books with links that you can find all these books.
Yep.
Internet Archive has a lot of these books where I found them. Create an account, go in there, read the information for yourself. But basically just talking about the way he used his method. For example, just going to add this one in there. He was talking about a slight authoritative air with this particular patient, which told him that he was probably like a military officer. You see little things like
Just
that.
The way he was moving, his movements and stuff, you mean?
Well, the way he was talking, the way he was showing respect, I
got
guess.
you.
Yeah. There were certain things like that. And you start to think about all these things like you could be noticing, that could be giving you information, telling you things, helping your awareness of your situation.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm just going to throw this in there too. I've read that there's a whole, like, be more like Dr. Joseph Bell, like a learning method that you can probably look up online. I found this one time. I tried to find it in preparation for this episode, for this podcast, so I could tell you a little bit more about it. But I just know that I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Where people have essentially developed this whole thing around, like, learning to be more like him, because it's an important skill that we should probably all know. And maybe we had it at some point more than we have it now. Do you see people like,
I think so,
walk around, they're stuck in their phones?
Yeah,
man.
you're not even
They're
looking where you're walking.
Basic stuff, like basic safety of your environment and your awareness of not getting hit by a car.
Yep.
Or
hitting someone with your car.
Or, some street toughs walking down towards you, some no good nicks. Some hooligans.
Yeah. Like those guys need to be strung up by their Buster Browns.
Right. Maybe,
Try to
Jaws.
Squeak in a quote there.
Was that Jaws?
Yeah, it was. The mayor.
Hung up by their Buster Browns.
Buster Browns.
So, these are important skills that I think everybody could probably stand to utilize in their daily life.
Mm-hmm. If you could make it part of your daily life, it would be extremely helpful, I think. Just for like little things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Countless little things that I can't think of right now, but I can think of a lot of them. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying as I'm
Thank you.
reading my notes again, trying to find a little more information to share.
Okay. Now I can also... I don't know. Never mind. That's jumping too far ahead. I was going to bring up the old Eugene case, but I think it's too far ahead. Do we start to talk about them? Like him and Doyle kind of teaming up a little bit? Was I kind of doing that?
Were they teaming up?
Yeah, they kind of got called in together to look into some cases by Scotland Yard.
I think it was him and Littlejohn. Henry Littlejohn.
Not Doyle.
No. Doyle was never, I don't believe he was ever utilized.
Oh,
anything I've ever found, he was never utilized in this stuff.
Maybe.
He was an author and a general practitioner of medicine, but he was never...
I must have misread.
This would actually be a good time to tell you and the listeners right now that wasn't really planning on to use this for an episode. In fact, we got the idea to do this episode. I had already done this. I had already contacted the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, right? I emailed them, Justin.
Wow.
Yeah. To get some information on Dr. Joseph Bell.
This is before you even knew we were going to talk about him.
Long before.
You were just interested.
2 years ago?
Wow.
Last year.
Okay.
Early last year. So we're probably a year and a half ago. And I contacted an archivist. I didn't know who I was emailing. Okay. So I just shoot an email off to the college there. And I'm just wanting to get any information I can get about the good doctor. And the archivist that contacts me back within like 48 hours. I was surprised. She sends me a couple of things. I
mean, it had to go around the world. So it takes a while. I get it.
It is a long way.
Yeah.
She at first was, I guess because of the COVID thing, she was telling me that a lot of stuff has not been digitized. It's not online anywhere. It's in their archives. So they have hard copies, a lot of letters, a lot of things that Dr. Bell wrote. That once the college opens back up, whatever, I can come in and check things out. And I was like, well, that's going to be a problem because I'm 6,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing here. I don't know exactly what the distance is.
Roughly. I think you're about
another continent.
I think if you did kilometers, you would have more. You probably read about kilometers.
Probably, yeah. On another continent, another country, far away, across the pond.
Oh, you beat me to it. I was about to say it.
That's what I told her in the email. I
Yeah.
said, cross the pond. And, I'm sure she laughed.
I was just going to say, I'm sure she loved that little joke.
But she was, she sent me a couple of things that they had digitized. Wasn't much. I think it was his obituary. And it was a letter from Conan Doyle to him confirming that he was the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes and that he was glad that he really sort of appreciated, because you have to remember at the time, Conan Doyle, he starts writing this character. He'd been out of medical school for some time. He just happened to think back on this professor he had in college that had this crazy ability to just pick people apart and figure everything out about them,
Yeah.
So he was just, glad that his professor was happy. And he, I think that was basically the only thing that she sent me was just those two items.
Yeah.
Which she told me to not digitally reproduce anywhere online. So I've stayed true to that. I've not posted those anywhere online, but I think you can pretty much find them anywhere. It wasn't really anything like hush top secret about Dr. Bell,
Yeah.
So anyway,
Like he's a gray.
Right.
Nothing like that.
No.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Good. Unfortunately, good.
But we go above and beyond here. The Terribly Vexed Podcast.
Yeah.
Emailing colleges.
God, yeah.
Trying to get information, even though I got absolutely nothing from it. One interesting thing that I did ask her, though, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, if you want to. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. What the hell?
Was his involvement, as we can probably sort of start transitioning over into the forensic side of things a little bit, is his involvement in the Jack the Ripper case. Yes, that's right. Dr. Bell.
Mr. Ripper.
Was brought in to try to identify Jack the Ripper. He and his colleague, Dr. Henry Littlejohn. And so she confirmed that for me. I'd read that on the internet, several different places, but I had never confirmed it with anybody officially.
Right.
So it was good to do that.
Right.
I think.
Because, the internet's usually full of truthful things, but if you can just go ahead and get a confirmation.
It's mostly all facts, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Somebody's blog,
Yeah. Bob's website.
And then I confirmed it in several books, too, surprisingly enough.
Books?
Yeah. Those stupid things. She said, I have attached a letter which I hope you will enjoy reading. This is Arthur Conan Doyle's letter to Bell, acknowledging him as the main inspiration. Just that's her telling me about that, blah, blah, blah. Bell's obituary. As far as I am aware, Bell was consulted on the Ripper case alongside Henry Duncan Littlejohn, who was also who was the president of their college, and they both provided the same name, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, that name has been lost to history. Whoever it is they discovered as being the possible Jack the Ripper has disappeared. That name disappeared. We don't even know if perhaps maybe he was secretly apprehended, which could have also happened.
Right.
Or it's the Wild West back in those days. This is Victorian era England. It's it's pretty sketch, pretty abysmal existence. Whitechapel and all
very
that stuff.
Foggy.
Smog.
Yeah.
You have to think all the factories, all the chimneys, soot,
wet cobblestones.
Right. Oliver Twist,
Yeah. Little mice. Rats.
So anyway.
I don't know. Go ahead.
In case anybody didn't know that, it's like a crazy Sherlock Holmes versus what's the guy? His arch nemesis. What was his name?
Moriarty.
It's exactly what that is. In real life.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes was sought after to find out the identity of Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, and which they came to the same conclusion, and it's gone, like you said,
and confirmed with the archivist that it disappeared somehow.
Which is crazy that stuff like that around the world just goes missing. Like we were talking the moon landing, the original film of that,
right?
Gone.
The footage.
How
do you lose that?
How is that taped over or whatever the hell they did? They put the wrong VHS tape in.
Yeah.
Did they tape the Super Bowl over it? I don't understand how you lose that. All kinds of stuff.
Well, that sort of leads into a possible conspiracy, which we deal with day in and day out around this place.
Jack the Ripper was Epstein.
Or possibly associated with someone in high position of power. I know that the
Yeah.
theory's been put forward that he was in some way associated with perhaps the royal family.
Oh,
He could have been somebody of wealth, an elite of some kind,
just getting his kicks.
getting his kicks, possibly. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
If that's the case, they could have been protecting his identity, or if he wasn't, and maybe they actually did apprehend the guy.
Maybe they actually got him.
But there will be something a little later that I'll talk about
Ooh.
that will possibly throw a wrench in the whole idea. And the information that they were going off of at the time would have given them the identity of the person that they may or may not thought it was.
Okay.
And I'll tell you about that a little later.
Okay.
It's just something, it's a book I actually read recently. I think I shared something on the Instagram talking about it, which I was recommending. It was one of our book recommendations. Which
At Terribly Vexed Podcast on Instagram.
on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that in
Post
there.
a lot of fun stuff there.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of researchers do a lot of Twitter threads. They do deep dives on stuff. Kind of our little social media outlet there. Most times is going to be Instagram.
Yeah. I think we're coming to all of them, though. It's going to be like,
Yeah,
I might as well go ahead and say it. If you post on Instagram, it's going to be going to Twitter, Facebook, and hopefully we're going to start doing this on YouTube.
okay, yeah. They're
Yeah.
all connected.
Yeah. And you can see that all on terriblyvexed.com. It's up. We got it. So enjoy.
It's official.
Enjoy.
That's our home. That's
It
our
is.
home now. You can come and see us and say hi. Send us a message.
You can do that there. Direct message right to us. But go ahead.
No, that's it.
I was saving that for the end, really, but
Hey, you can say it again later.
I will. 100%.
Yeah, it's so anyway, yeah, that's just that he was consulted on the Jack the Ripper case. We were going to kind of talk about his forensic work a little bit, I guess. I think you had some information on that.
Maybe not so much his forensic stuff, but like as far as
His detective work, he was doing casework for the police, for Scotland Yard.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as like his medical stuff, I had stuff that like, it's like his earlier days and like he was a pioneer in other stuff as well. It's like such as sterilization in hospitals. That was one of his big
Oh, yeah. Okay.
stuff like that. You know, do you want me to go ahead and get into that, or
Sure.
Or,
We'll
I
talk
mean-
about his medical.
we can do that, or do you want to get on with like the exciting stuff?
No. We need a basis. A base for this, to lay it all on. So
Well, I mean, back in those days, surgeons would wear, gowns for multiple surgeries. The same gown covered in God knows whose blood. You're cutting into somebody
Tissue.
else. Yeah.
yeah.
And so Bell just came up with this idea. He says, hey, you know what, guys? Perhaps this is what's
Maybe.
causing like gangrene transmissions around the hospital. So they swapped out gowns, and sure enough, lo and behold.
Put clean ones on.
Yep.
Wash our hands.
Yeah, that
Basic cleanliness.
pretty much went away.
See, we have to think like, this wasn't always the case. People weren't always
No.
thinking in terms of like, I mean, this was groundbreaking stuff at the time. It's hard to believe now, but like,
Yeah.
wash your hands and change clothes. Let's not use the bloody entrail covered,
Yeah. And then you might know a man. You might use one of his products to this day. I'm going to go ahead and bring up another player in this little podcast here. Joseph Lister. Are you familiar with that man?
Yeah, I am.
Well, for those of you that are not, it's the man whose Listerine is still used to this day by many people. But Joseph...
I never found that. You told me about that, and I looked and looked and looked and could never
Yeah. Well,
confirm
well-
that information. Where in the hell did you find that?
I don't remember. I just have these notes. I need to like start doing a bibliography, but I really suck at those.
I would
I've
encourage
never
our
been good at
listeners
those.
to check that one out for themselves. I'm not convinced.
Just okay. Well, yeah, Joseph Lister. He created a carbolic spray in the late 1870s, and it would like fill up a whole room with like this mist that would just sanitize the whole room, much like wonderful Listerine does to your mouth. It fills your whole mouth and sanitizes it. It was a yellow spray, and it would just do that. But Bell was like one of the first on board with that. He was like, "Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah." But Joseph Lister, next episode. It's all about Listerine. Yeah, and then
Bore the shit out of everybody.
yeah. Old Dr. Bell, he worked in the Royal Hospital for Sick Children, and he got caught, is what I meant to say, diphtheria. And it lasted for months and left him with a limp. But while he was in the hospital, with kids and all that, he noticed a lot of the kids had similar symptoms, mainly diarrhea. And
gross.
Yeah, and he didn't know at the time, but he did notice, this was noted in his journals, that a lot of the kids that were sick like that, they craved moldy cheese. And he thought there was something behind that. And then, later on in 1928, old Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin on moldy cheese in a petri dish. So he didn't know what he was going for, but Bell was onto something.
He started to see something.
He was taking in clues and putting pieces together.
And had he been given a little more time, I think he would have probably put two and two together.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I thought so.
Yeah, think about that. We're several generations, many generations are used to having penicillin, having these things at our disposal. We need something.
Yeah.
For what? And you got it. Whereas back in the day, nope.
It was luck, pretty much.
Yeah.
But, now we got it. Take it for granted.
We do.
Yeah.
I think we take a lot of this stuff for granted. These discoveries that they made back then.
Yeah. And, he'd also, a lot of the times, I just saw this one little note here, like you might later on, we might talk about how he was like portrayed as very like emotionless and just kind of straight to the point, this, that, and the other, right?
Right.
But he would like regularly donate his time, help less fortunate, homeless, like just sick people. And like he was Dr. Bell.
Right. Yeah, of course.
He was just a nice man.
He was a good guy.
He's a great guy.
He was legit.
But all the stories that you hear about him, he was very cold and icy. Maybe he was Jack the Ripper.
I remember reading he had a kind of an odd walk. Conan Doyle talked about his use of the vernacular, said he was very sharp when he would speak, and he had an eagle's face.
Yeah.
We'll post some pictures of him, some photographs of him on the Instagram there for you. Hawk-nosed, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if the walk was because of the limp that he got from his diphtheria.
Yeah, could have been.
Said he was sick for months, left him with a limp. Perhaps, maybe Conan Doyle was making fun of a sick man, and he didn't even know it.
Jerk.
Yeah.
And they served him. You
Yes,
believe
they
this?
did. Yes, they did. Back then, though, did Sir mean as little back then as it does now?
I think it meant probably quite a bit
So
more.
it meant more? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was going to say they give it to everybody, but maybe back then they didn't.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, Sir Elton John.
Yeah. They just,
It's not.
does he really?
No disrespect to Elton John. Tiny dancer, but,
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve to be a knight.
Yeah. Knighted.
Yeah.
I think Conan probably deserved it.
Yeah. That kind of a man deserves it.
I think so.
Yeah.
His creation, his character. But, so eagle-faced. It's kind of a hawk nose, sort of a sharp, peering
Just
gaze.
a general bird of prey demeanor.
Yeah. So an interesting character, Dr. Bell.
Yeah. I think so. So we're talking about him, for God's sake.
Yeah, I've brought this up to people before in conversation because I'm a dork like that. But did you know Sherlock Holmes was a real guy? Fun facts. I like to do that.
Fun fact for you. Well, like I said earlier, I think when you texted me this idea, I didn't know who the hell he was, but interesting man.
Yeah, and too, when we're talking about the forensic stuff, like in the crime side of things, like when he was used by Scotland Yard, he never wanted any sort of, which I think that was a trait that he shared with Sherlock Holmes. He did not want any sort of fame, or he did not want to be known when his work was being utilized, when his abilities, when he was being brought into a case.
Just there to help.
Just there to help to solve the case.
Yeah, wasn't in it for the glory.
He definitely
didn't want to get his name in National Geographic.
Well, and you also kind of think too that's a safety kind of an issue as well. Like, what if you help them convict someone, and this person disappears, comes looking for you.
Next thing you know,
or their family, or something else like that. So there was probably part of that, but then also part that he really was just a good guy and just wanted to help solve the case.
Yeah, and
whatever it was.
Part of me thinks also, I'm sure he probably found it fun too. You're that good at something, and just
another outlet to use his abilities and his skills.
Yeah, it's gotta feel good.
Yeah,
like Ace Ventura, whenever he described all his, that's what Bell would do every time. Do you feel that? He would air hump and stuff. Yeah, Bell would do. That's where Ace Ventura got that from.
I'm sure that's where. Yeah.
I'm just sure it feels that good is all I'm saying. He didn't really do that.
No, he didn't really do it.
Yeah. What was the H.H. Holmes, right?
Pardon me?
H.H. Holmes? Was he one of the Jack the Ripper suspects for a while there?
I think I've seen that, but
it's one of the notes I got. Which,
people are familiar with H.H. Holmes.
He's a good one. As far as those guys go, he's a great one.
Can you recommend it wasn't an audiobook that you recommended. It was talking about H.H. Holmes.
It was. It was called The Devil in the White City.
Okay.
By Eric Larson. And it's really
This was roughly the same time period, I guess, which is why.
Yeah.
So H.H. Holmes, was he captured roughly at the same time period that after?
I'm not sure if it was after and they think he fled.
Yeah.
And came to Chicago and started doing his whole thing there.
And maybe some of that came from what I read in one of the books was talking about some of the wording in the different letters that Jack the Ripper wrote. Like was it the Dear Boss letter maybe? Some of the wording was, quote, American. It wasn't British, which is kind of what you see what I'm saying?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Thank God I just remembered that to keep us going here.
So that's okay. So that's why H.H. was at one point considered a suspect.
And probably other people too. I think they had other people, but I think some of the wording in some of the letters didn't seem to be British.
Huh.
And that may have been one of them. I think I saw that as being one of them. If I'm wrong,
nobody listens to this shit anyway.
And I'm pretty sure I saw that though, which is kind of an interesting.
It is.
Could have led to him in their hypothesis as to who this person may have been, or what his profession was, or where he came from. I'm sure lots of other things played into it as well, like the particular area, Whitechapel.
Yep.
The East End, where all of the crimes were happening. Which I guess now would probably be as good as time as any. We're kind of talking about the forensic stuff, the crime fighting side of Dr. Joseph Bell.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, while I was doing a little research for this podcast, I stumbled across a book called The Five. Did I tell you about that?
No.
I posted something on the Instagram just as the book recommendation, which I mentioned earlier. Author's name is Haley Rubenhold, and I think she's British. Anyway, she wrote a book called The Five, and it's basically just, I would say probably roughly 3 to 4 chapters devoted to each one of the 5 known victims of Jack the Ripper. And this is just sort of a side note to the whole thing. We're talking about Dr. Joseph Bell. He researched, he did help on the Jack the Ripper case. We're researching this stuff. I come across that, so I'm just bringing it up now just because it's a good book. I happened to see that it was in the Libby app. I just went ahead and got it. It was available. I consumed it quickly. It was a very interesting pile of information.
How old is the book, roughly?
I think 2019.
Okay, so very recent.
Very recent book. Okay. Brand new information. I was reading some reviews on this book. Lady did her... I say lady, I'm probably like 15, 20 years older than her. This lady, she did her research, very well researched book. Did a lot of, digging deep on the different biographies of the women that were known as the Canonical Five. I say they may have actually had more. Jack the Ripper may have actually had more victims, but these are the ones that are known to be have been thought to have been his victims For sure,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And this would have been all the ones that most people know about. Anyway, so she did several chapters on each one of the people. One of the main points, I just want to bring this up. I thought this was very interesting, which could have played into, which I mentioned earlier, could have played into Dr. Joseph Bell and Little John's theory as to who Jack the Ripper was. Because I did read in one of my sources that he or they thought he may have had he may have been infected by a prostitute. They assumed that all of these women were prostitutes. Well, in her research, Haley.
Oh, hold on. You're saying they assumed they were prostitutes?
Well, the police, Scotland Yard, assumed that all of these women were prostitutes. And in their sort of trying to develop a profile of the killer, long before any sort of FBI profiling of serial killers was, ever thought of.
Yeah.
Little John and Dr. Bell thought that perhaps maybe he had been infected or, some sort of infection from a prostitute.
Right.
Maybe he frequented seeing prostitutes, and that could have turned him into he's exacting his revenge.
He's getting some revenge.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But all the women were prostitutes.
That's the thing. They weren't all prostitutes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right. This is why I recommended this book and why you should check it out yourself. It's very interesting because what you had was at least 3 of them, I believe she said, were not really prostitutes, could have possibly turned a trick to make some money because, again, think back on the time period, Victorian era London, abysmal, okay? You're working in like bleach factories. You're working in just horrible conditions.
Matchstick dipping.
What?
That was a bad job back in the day.
I'd have to imagine that it would be, yeah. But, you're paid very little. It's, human bondage, basically, is all it is. And so at that time period, too, the status or the position of women was that you had to have a husband who was, something in society, who had money, and you were secondary to everything, involving him and the family and everything like that. So if you lost those things for whatever reason, which several of these women did, then you were essentially sort of cast out of society.
Yeah.
Okay, and she really drives that point home and proves that with a lot of the information that she found through her research. A lot of these women had families, husbands, kids. A couple of them became alcoholics, and through, series of life events made them, lose their families, lose their husbands. They end up on the streets. Next thing you know, they're crossing paths with the Ripper.
They're getting ripped.
Yeah. So 2 of them probably were prostitutes, and then the others probably were not, but had just ended up in many, through unfortunate events in life, ended up on the streets of Whitechapel in the East End area. So it's just an interesting side note to the whole thing, that their original sort of hypothesis as to who the person may have been, it could have seriously affected that, and they could have been completely way off. Just want to throw that out there. I don't think anybody's connected those dots yet.
I didn't know that.
But you're hearing it here first on the Terribly Vexed Podcast. I'll tell you right now.
There it is. Hey.
We are our diligent researching that we do for these episodes.
That was brilliant.
I thought it was kind of cool. Also, I'd recommend people pick up that book. Check it out.
What was it called again?
The Five by Haley Rubenhold. And it's just a couple years old. Great book.
Let's check that out.
It's a quick read, as they say. Suck you right in.
Like a 120-pager?
I don't think so.
All right. I'm out then. Forget it.
That's pretty good, though.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know of Jack the Ripper. I've seen From Hell.
So this would have been like 1888 to, I think, 1891 is when those murders happened.
Yeah.
Sort of the time period.
I would like to know more about that. I'm going to start with that. Thank you.
You're going to start with her
book.
Okay, and so for people that may be interested in the Jack the Ripper side of things, she doesn't talk about Jack the Ripper at all.
All right, forget what I said.
If you're wanting to find out about Jack the Ripper. But the information that she provides you of the people that leads in their life up to the point where they get killed by Jack the Ripper, and some of that sort of crosses over into the crime scene and all of that information, you definitely need to read that book. So
I'm going to do it.
And again, I just, happened to get it. It was available, got it, and I've been telling everybody about it.
Yeah, now you're telling everybody.
Yeah.
Literally.
Everybody.
Yeah. Well, is that all you have as far as Jack the Ripper stuff goes?
Yeah, it was really not. I didn't want to go down a whole Jack the Ripper thing. This is about Dr. Joseph Bell, but it's just important that he was utilized because he had kind of already made a name for himself in working with Scotland Yard, which we can talk about some of those now too, which I've mentioned them, but
yeah, well, I mean,
Eugene Chantrell.
That's his first big boy case. That was his first one.
Was that the first big one?
That was his first major thing, which we'll get to it when we're done here, but go ahead. You probably have more notes than I do on it. I just got a little basic rundown.
No, by all means.
Jeez.
I've been talking for like
Eugene,
20 minutes here. You got it. You got this.
Let's see what I can make out of this. You correct me if I got anything wrong.
Because I have notes too. We'll just go back and forth here.
Perfect.
I'm not leaving you hanging, bro.
Okay, I'm just going to do a quick thing of the whole thing. Right? That's what this podcast is all about.
Of the stuff.
Yeah. Quick thing of the stuff. Bada bing, bada boom. So Eugene Chantrell. This is from, he was a French teacher in 1878 at the Newington Academy in Edinburgh. Right? And he had a wife named Elizabeth Chantrell. And she was said to have died from a supposed fire, a coal gas poisoning fire in their home, much like carbon monoxide, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, carbon monoxide poisoning, I guess.
Yeah.
She goes to bed, falls asleep, whatever.
This guy comes in there, Eugene, the husband comes home, calls 999 over there? Obviously, then no phones, but you know what I mean. He called the police, made a big stink, got the investigators over. Oh yeah, she died from coal poisoning, whatever they had to heat in their house.
Apparently, he took out $1,000 life insurance policy against any sort of accidental death.
Yes,
of his wife, August 1877. She was found unconscious in the morning of 2nd of January 1878.
Mm-hmm.
She later died in the hospital.
Now, maids in the household, and this was a quote that I got from a maid back then. He was a real asshole. This was not a real quote, but apparently from what they got from the maids, he was a real asshole physically, and he actually threatened to poison his wife, as well.
He'd already run in his mouth.
Yes. He yelled at her a lot and said she would. This is a quote. He yelled at her a lot and said that she would go to hell. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was just not. This guy was a real jerk.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah. And so Bell gets to do the autopsy, right? On Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you're looking at me like I was about to say something wrong. No, he does the autopsy.
Liar.
And apparently, I didn't know this either, but if you die from like gas poisoning or fume poisoning, stuff like that,
right?
Your organs reek of that stuff. Like your blood is it's filled with it. So
your tissues absorb it.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But Bell checked their insides out, and I was like, there's no odor here. This smells like a normal, just a dead. There's no gas, no fume, no coal, no nothing. So that was part one there. He's like, oh boy, something's fishy.
Something's going on.
And then I didn't know this either. Back in 1878, you could do blood tests, like to check the blood for, like what do they call it, toxicology. I didn't know they could do that back then. But they did find opium crystals in the blood.
So he had OD'd her?
Perhaps. So at this point, Bell's like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What he did.
Yeah. So go ahead. What else do you got here?
I don't have anything else.
Yeah. So that long story short here, that's what the guy did.
I'm sorry.
Right? No. Joseph Bell went back into the home and searched the room and all that, and he found a small vial that had opium in it that matched the stuff that was in her blood. So, crime solved, right?
That guy was executed, right?
I don't know.
Eugene?
Oh, yeah. He was arrested and sentenced to death and hanged
Yeah.
at Carlton Prison. Yeah, in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Now, that's all well and good, but to me, the most interesting part of this story, unless you have more, I'm going to move on a little bit from that case.
Wait. Before you move on, I'm pretty sure that case is mentioned in one of the documentaries on YouTube.
Okay.
And I think that wasn't somebody brought in, didn't Bell bring somebody in to check and see if the coal pipe or whatever it was had been tampered with? Do you remember that? Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I think that's what I watched. That's where I got this from, but I left that part out, I guess. No, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure they did more than just what I said. Just Bell's just like, hey, yeah.
But I wonder if that was used to sort of like incapacitate her, if it was sort of like the guy was using multiple things to try and kill her.
Yeah. Or
So
there was
he
no...
OD'd her, and then also, the carbon monoxide poisoning.
I think, yeah, I don't know.
Like a
I guess
combination of the
He was
two.
just trying to get that policy, trying to get that Skrilla.
Trying to get that Skrilla.
Yeah.
Right. And he did, I guess, for a minute.
Yeah, for a little while.
Until Sherlock was put on the
old
case.
Sherlock. Yeah. But...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No.
Nope. I was going to do the same thing I was going to do.
No, I was just going to say that there was a lot of... I was going to go off on a weird tangent about Sherlock versus Bell. Not a good time to go into it. You go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's an odd little side note here about this case that we were talking about. Sherlock Holmes, a great literary character. And apparently Eugene Chantrell met Robert Louis Stevenson.
This was the murderer.
Eugene Chantrell was the murderer of his wife, Elizabeth, and he met Robert Louis Stevenson at a mutual friend's, Victor Richon. Anyways, so Robert Louis Stevenson kind of knew that Eugene was kind of an ass, and he saw the bad side of him, and he was the inspiration for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Eugene Chantrell.
It's crazy.
Yeah, what are the odds? Two characters like that.
Connected.
A little bit crossing path. Yeah.
I mean, you've got...
That's crazy.
The real life Jack the Ripper, who is, and you've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You've got Sherlock Holmes from Bell.
Yeah. It's craziness.
That's crazy, Holmes.
Well done. Well done.
You know what that's from?
I don't know exactly, no. I mean, I can.
You did. That's why you're...
What is it from?
It's Training Day. It's crazy, Holmes.
See, I pictured Fast and Furious. I mean, God, there's a lot of different stuff that could have been from.
It's wild, though, isn't it?
It is.
It's pretty interesting, though. I remember stumbling across that when I was looking at that same case, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah,
That's
just the
nuts.
Yeah. So, I can also talk about how Bell, what he thought of being Sherlock Holmes, being the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes.
By all means.
Apparently, he didn't really like it all that much. He thought...
you know what? That's exactly kind of what I was going... the tangent I was going to go off on a second ago.
Perfect.
It's just along those same lines.
Yeah.
It's important to note that if you read Sherlock Holmes and you think, oh, this is exactly how Dr. Bell is...
No.
He's not exactly like Sherlock Holmes in a lot of ways. His ability and his knowledge base to deduce that all works the same.
Yeah.
Okay, that was directly pulled from Dr. Bell, but like personality-wise,
I think that's the character trait that Doyle used for Sherlock. He just got that from Bell, that one little part of him, popped it into his character, Sherlock Holmes.
He had to create, ultimately he had to create his own unique character there. But
yeah, I got a quote here from Bell. He was talking about how he didn't like the fact that he was portrayed to be so heartless because, like I said earlier, he was a nice guy, charitable,
Right.
But Sherlock's kind of, right to the point.
He's like a machine. He doesn't
exactly.
care.
Yeah, and he once wrote to, of course, my bibliography is missing, but he wrote, "I am haunted by my double, Sherlock Holmes," which I guess that kind of sucks. I wonder if Conan Doyle. There we go. What if he felt bad about that, or if I don't know.
Nah.
No. Okay.
Yeah, from the letter from the archivist said, he was pretty much happy with.
He was all right with it.
I think he was okay with it.
All right.
It's just he didn't want people to assume, because Sherlock was pretty much black and white.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of character traits that Bell didn't have. He was also kind of a drug addict with the cocaine and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't want people to think that he was like that. And he
Right.
talks about that several times, and there's several instances where he brings that up.
Yeah. And I have that letter. Should I preface that? I'm talking about the one but it's from A Day with Dr. Conan Doyle by Harry Howe. Great name. And this was from an article in the Strand magazine in 1892.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and read that right now. But really, I pre-read this and cut out all the mistakes that I made because I'm awful at,
Brilliant.
Yeah, so
We're not going to do that.
I've
tried that before too. It's a mistake.
Yeah, it's horrible. I took the liberty of pre-reading this and cutting out all my problems. And I may have a little outtake reel I can play later. We'll see.
I'm excited.
But right now, here's that letter. This is from Dr. Joseph Bell, June 16th, 1892, written to Harry Howe. Dear Sir, you asked me about the kind of teaching to which Dr. Conan Doyle has so kindly referred when speaking of his ideal character, Sherlock Holmes. Dr. Conan Doyle has, by his imaginative genius, made a great deal out of very little, and his warm remembrance of one of his old teachers has colored the picture. In teaching the treatment of disease and accident, all careful teachers have first to show the student how to recognize accurately the case. The recognition depends in great measure on the accurate and rapid appreciation of small points in which the diseased differs from the healthy state. In fact, the student must be taught to observe. To interest him in this kind of work, we teachers find it useful to show the student how much a trained use of the observation can discover in ordinary matters such as the previous history, nationality, and occupation of a patient. The patient, too, is likely to be impressed by your ability to cure him in the future if he sees you at a glance know much of his past, and the whole trick is much easier than it appears at first. For instance, physiognomy helps you to nationality, accent to district, and, to an educated ear, almost to county. Nearly every handicraft writes its sign manual on the hands. The scars of the miner differ from those of the quarryman. The carpenter's calicites are not those of the mason. The shoemaker and the tailor are quite different. The soldier and the sailor differ in gait, though last month I had to tell a man who said he was a soldier that he had been a sailor in his boyhood. The subject is endless. The tattoo marks on hand or arm will tell the tale as to the voyages. The ornaments on the watch chain of the successful settler will tell you where he made his money. A New Zealand squatter will not wear a gold mohe, nor an engineer on an Indian railway a Maori stone. Carry the same idea of using one's senses accurately and constantly, and you will see that many a surgical case will bring his past history, national, social, and medical into the consulting room as he walks in. Dr. Conan Doyle's genius and intense imagination has on this slender basis made his detective stories a distinctly new departure, but he owes much less than he thinks to yours truly, Dr. Joseph Bell. Well done, me.
It's much better. You have to do that, I think.
Yeah. So you can see that he kind of, thought a lot of it was up in Conan's head. All of, he really used more of his imagination.
Yeah, and it's also kind of, you can compare, obviously, Dr. Bell to Sherlock Holmes, and you can also compare Dr. Watson to Conan Doyle, his sidekick.
Right.
He really put him in the place of his sidekick, which I think other people have noted in several books too, that you can see.
Yep. I think that's where I got confused about the Little John, Conan Doyle, Watson. I think I got all those Dickens. All
Yeah,
those
there
messed
was
up there.
I've seen that too, but I mean clearly when you look at the description and you look at, Conan Doyle describing Watson being the more compassionate of the two,
Yeah.
bringing a little heart into the situation with Sherlock Holmes, because Sherlock Holmes was all about the deets. He didn't care.
He didn't care whose
It was
feelings.
logical. It was facts.
Yep.
It was what is going to. He was driven by solving the case.
Yep. That was it.
And so Dr. Watson was definitely the guy that was, brought a little more humanity into it, and that would have been Conan Doyle's place in that.
Yeah.
So I don't think a lot of people knew that either, really. But if you're interested in this, if you're listening to this podcast at all, and you were curious, I think you can go ahead and we can make that assumption.
I would imagine so.
So anyway,
So yeah, I think we did a great job.
yeah, it's just if you're
There's-
interested in this, there's a lot of information out there. We're going to include links to the books.
Yeah.
You can find them yourself.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot more.
Yeah, there's
You know.
there's a lot more instances where they're talking about. I think there's at least a few more cases that they talk about directly that are pretty interesting. Where it talks about Dr. Bell using his powers of deduction, and you can check those out if you want to. But so anyway, I guess you want to go ahead. Do you have any other information before we close this one out that you want to share about the real Sherlock Holmes?
I don't think so. I think
think we covered all the bases with what we have here.
we got enough out there. So I think even people who didn't know are going to be interested now, and they're going to be like, "All right,
We've piqued interest.
let me read that book," and then they go there. Speaking of books, if you want to win a book, you can go on over to iTunes, rate, review, subscribe, leave us a comment, and you may just win. What's the book, Josh? Go.
I don't know.
The Lost Diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
You actually have that somewhere?
I mean, I'll have to order it when somebody does, but it'll be a fresh, brand new copy. Other than that, you go to terriblyvexed.com. You get access to everything there.
Yeah.
Social feed, recent episodes. We're going to hopefully post some pictures up soon, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, pictures.
Yeah, we'll start doing stuff. And I think that's about it, right?
I think
I
so.
mean, I got nothing. Oh, I talked to you earlier about this. My brother's music. Can I bring that up?
Absolutely.
My brother Jacob Perliani, he's killing it in Nashville. He's got a couple songs on the radio. He just did some live performances, and I thought it would be all right. It'd be cool.
Cool. Real cool.
Perhaps
We listened to the song prior to recording.
very good song. It's called "Praying to Ravens."
It's pretty kick-ass.
Singing, maybe end the show with that. Perhaps.
Do it to it.
What do you think about that?
Let's do it.
All right. So Jacob Perliani music. You can go on, Instagram for that, and Jacob Perliani on YouTube. And here is "Praying to Ravens."
See y'all next time.
Bye-bye. This is from Dr. Joseph Bell. Dr. Conan Doyle had, and his warm remembrance of one of his old teachers has, oh my God in heaven, and his warm remembrance of one of his old teachers has colored the picture. Fuck that up too. The recognition depends in great measure on the accurate, rapid. To interest him in this kind of work, we teachers find it useful to show the student how much a trained use of the observation. To interest him in this kind of work, Jesus Christ. The patient, too, is likely to be impressed by your ability to cure him in the future if he sees you. Oops. The patient, too, is likely to... And the whole trick is much easier than it appears. For instance, physiognomy helps you to national... God damn it. The scars of the miner differ from those of the quarryman. The carpenter's... Dr. Conan Doyle's genius and intense imagination has on this slender basis made his detective stories a distinctly new departure, but he owes much less than he thinks to yours truly, Dr. Joseph Bell. Woo! Okay.